Welcome back to All This Math. This is Professor Parker, and as you see, I got Rosa Parks on my chest, and we can never forget the ancestor Rosa Parks. Her contributions, even prior to the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955, she was already an organizer, already an activist working with the NAACP, and even after that, years after, she was affiliated with the Republic of New Africa. She was affiliated with a lot of the civil rights activity, even way after that. So definitely do your research on Rosa Parks. Look her up, study her more deeply than what we've been given in the mainstream. All right. Now I'm gonna read the problem that's printed in the description. I'm gonna read it out loud. You read it as well before we get into this. All right. And if you wanna try to answer this question by yourself, feel free to just pause the video, work the problem out, and then hit play once you finish to see if we do the problem the same way, or at least if we get to the same answer. Because you might do the problem a different way from me, right? And that's perfectly fine too, right? Because there are always many ways to do math problems. There's never going to be just one way to solve a math problem, all right? So problem reads this, or reads as such. Find the cost of 2.5 pounds of haddock, which is a type of fish, if you don't know. Find the cost of 2.5 pounds of haddock if 1 pound costs $2.54. If 1 pound costs $2.54. So you see this as a proportion problem. And the reason we know that is because we're given information about the relationship between two things, and we're trying to find the relationship between two other things. But one of those things is missing. And among the two other things, one of those things is missing. So we know the relationship between 1 pound of haddock and its cost, but we know the relationship is equal between 2.5 pounds of haddock and its cost. So we just got to find its cost. All right. But that's how we know it's a proportion. So again, in case that was confusing, let me say it again. We use proportions when we got equal relationships between two things. In this case, the weight of the fish and the cost of the fish. The weight and the cost. The weight and the cost. The weight and the cost. Right? Except for 2.5 pounds, we don't know the cost. But because we know that the relationships are the same, we can set up a proportional equation and then solve for what we don't know. We can figure out what we don't know. So let's first write this. Let's write weight over cost. That's our proportion. And whenever you see problems like this, you'll be able to set them up like this too. So we got weight over cost is equal to weight. I put the dollar sign for cost, just so you know. Weight over cost. So the weight of the fish divided by the cost is equal to the weight of the fish divided by the cost. Now, based on this problem, we know we can get a pound for $2.54. We can get a pound for $2.54. So that's the relationship between this and this. 1 pound, $2.54. 1 pound, $2.54. So we got 1 over 2.54. Then you write your equal sign. Now we want to know information about 2.5 pounds. So that goes right here, because that's the weight for this. So we got 2.5. We could have called it 2.5, but this is cool. 2.5 is good. Now the cost, right? For this amount, we don't know. That's not given to us, but we can figure it out though, using this proportional equation. I'm gonna use the letter C for the variable to represent the cost of 2.5 pounds. All right. And then in order to solve this equation, now we're about to do a little bit of algebra, just a little bit, not too much, nothing too heavy, right? We're gonna cross multiply, and I call that the Malcolm X method. Malcolm X method. Why? Because we form an X when we cross multiply. That's why. So I do 1 times C. This marker's almost dead. Anyway, 1 times C is C. So I write C on one side of the equal sign. Put the equal sign down. Then I do 2.54 times 2.5. Now, because this is a decimal, I'm going to change this to a decimal. Because I know that 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5. 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5. Because I know that 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5, then I can change this to 2.5. So I got 2.54 times 2.5. All right, so now I'm gonna do 2.54 times 2.5, and that's gonna give me, because I calculated this earlier, $6.35. So that means that if I can get 1 pound of haddock for $2.54, I can get 2.5 or 2.5 pounds of haddock for $6.35. And I just used a proportion, right? Now, people do this type of math and these types of calculations all the time. They do it in their head. A lot of those same people don't realize that they do an algebra when they do that. And if you had to write it down and document it, this is what it would look like. But this is what you're doing in your head, all right? Because if you say, okay, another way to do this would be, all right, if I know I can get 1 pound for $2.54, 1 times 2.5 is 2.5. So if I multiply this number by 2.5 to get 2.5, I would also multiply this number by 2.5 to get 635. And like I said, there's always multiple ways to solve problems when we're doing mathematics. So answer to this question, $6.35. This is another proportion question. Remember, Malcolm X method. Also, since we evoking the name of the ancestor Malcolm X, go do some research on Malcolm X. Go revisit the autobiography of Malcolm X. Go on YouTube, listen to some of his speeches, you know, watch his debates, watch him in action, watch his footage. All right. Also, do your research on the ancestor Rosa Parks. Go check her out. Definitely check out her work. Check out the community she was a part of. Check out the people that did work along with her. All right. Get some practice on proportions, and I'll catch up to you in the next video. Peace.